Hello my friends, welcome back to another video. It's been a while, my apologies. But today I'm back with another forest landscape with a little bit of mist, but mainly focusing on those fall colors. Using some oranges here and some reddish oranges, but really you can use whatever color that you want. The first thing that I do with my paper is I am wetting the section that I want to use the wet on wet technique. You can see that I have not taped down my paper, and that is because I didn't feel like it, and lately, mostly, I never tape down my paper. I do sometimes, but for the most part, I don't. Usually I will add water to the back of my paper and the front of my paper, and that just allows me to hold the paper down and without any of the ripples happening in the middle, which I find always happens no matter what paper you use if I tape it down. And I think that's just because I use a lot of water. So as I wet the area that I want and then wet the other area that I want, I find that my paper will flatten when I spray it down or mist it with my spray bottle. So that works for me. Now you can see for the sky, I just dropped in a little bit of color and moved it around. And now I have a line here to emphasize that they're going to be some distant trees. And that's what I've done here. I've just taken a green and I've changed up the hue by adding a little bit of red. Red is my preferred color to bring down the green or to warm it up a bit. But of course you can use any green that you want, any shade that you want. You do not need this brush. I don't even know. I just grabbed it. But I was just trying to bring the paint up to emphasize their distant trees. But you can't really even see this anyway. So you know, I didn't really need to do this, or I probably should have brought it up a bit more. I did do a little bit of outline here. So if you can see some pencil marks, that's because I did. Normally I never do an outline, but I didn't want to forget that I was going to make a path. So, and with the path, I decided to use a little bit of lifting. So once you add some paint on your paper, then you take your damp brush and you can remove the paint away. So that's what I did here. Now I first took a yellow, and I believe this is yellow ochre, and then I added in more concentrated of the same yellow and dropped it in. Because it's wet, it's going to spread around, and then you can see I'm always spritzing my paper. And then I went ahead and dropped in this beautiful orange with red undertones. So you can see that's very saturated and very like reddish. And there's that path, and I'm coloring in it a little bit, but I'm moving my brush upwards. Now you can see what I'm doing with my brush, and this might be painful for some of you. And you know, I totally get it. I understand, because I am very rough on my brushes. This brush is destroyed, technically, because the bristles are quite frayed. But I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because I know how I paint and how I work landscapes. You do not need to wiggle your brush upwards. You can wiggle your brush downward, or you can take your damp brush to remove paint by just gently going across the page. You don't need to wiggle your bristles. You do not need to do what I am doing. There, you can achieve the same landscape doing different techniques. You do not have to ruin your brushes, but this is just what I do. So I just want to get that out there. I know I say it in all my videos, but these are my landscape brushes. And this one, I love this brush. It has a nice fine tip. Any long round brush I am there for. I am team long rounds. And now I haven't used a lot of long rounds. I've only used long rounds. This one by Aqua Elite, Princeton Aqua Elite, and it's a size 12 long round, and then same with the Velvet Touch brushes. I know I've had a couple comments about not being able to get the Velvet Touch brushes in different countries, and I am so sorry about that. I know I use those all the time, but any brush that you can find that has a very fine point, fine tip. If you were wanting a brush similar to mine, then I would say if you can get your hands on anything that has a very fine, sharp tip, then go ahead and do that. That is definitely what allows me to easily get some of the details in my tree branches. But again, you do not even need a fine tip. If you use a regular brush and you find that your branches are too on like the thicker side, then you can take a detail brush, and while it's still wet, you can pull away those tiny little details. So not all is lost. You can definitely still achieve a detailed tree, even if you can't get the same brushes as me. So I definitely don't want anyone to get hooked up on my brushes, because you can get a beautiful scene using your own brushes. You'll just have to figure out different ways of how much water to paint ratio is what I mean. Now, I did something different here. I decided to outline my mountain before filling it in. I'm using a gravy brush and a detailed brush here. It really doesn't matter. Now, the gravy brushes are pretty inexpensive. You can get a pack for, I believe, $17 or $20, somewhere in there. And yeah, they're really, really nice. And I can get enough water on there to move it around. Because the bristles are quite stiff, I would say, it does move the paint around a bit more, but I personally like that. And I love a dry brush mountain, and so I do a lot of dry brushing. So once I have my enough water on the page, then I'll go back and start adding different amounts of paint to it and just wiggling my brush around and playing with it. I do leave that middle part of the mountain towards the right quite empty, because since I brought down the sky, which I don't believe I mentioned, but for the sky I used Payne's Gray. Real simple, keeping it real simple, no color mixing, just the color as is, and then I darken it up by just adding more concentrated paint. So, and that's what I personally prefer to do. I might add one more color to either bring the color down or to warm it up, or to darken it, but really my paintings, my style, my preference is very simplistic, and that's because I'm a bit lazy of a painter and I don't want to have to worry about making enough color and all of that. But if that is your thing, then by all means do that, because color mixing is beautiful and you can get some really wonderful shades and create your own unique color palette that you fall in love with. And I totally encourage that. Do that. But as of today, I do not feel like doing that. I have my set colors that I like to use, and that's kind of what I stick to. But tomorrow it might change. Who knows? Tomorrow I might love pink. Probably not. Probably not. Pink is a nice shade, but I don't know where I'd fit it in with my landscapes that call to me, if you know what I mean. Maybe some sunsets, but again, I don't know. We'll see what happens. So for this one, the one on the right, I just used a bit more water and didn't do as much dry brushing. That's why it looks much softer compared to this one that I'm working on. And you can see those bristles. I am just moving them around. I will have the video in the description below linking to how I do the mountains. And hopefully I will have put a time card in there once I started these in the upper right hand screen. But it's very simple. I do not ever have a plan. I like to eyeball things and hope it turns out, which usually it does. Sometimes it doesn't. There are definitely some things that I would have liked to fix or redo with this painting, but it's just a demonstration purpose. So, I can't expect every painting that I do for videos to be a masterpiece. And I just think, that's unrealistic, and that's okay. So you might see this painting and think it's great. You might see this painting and think it's awful. It's fine, right? Art is subjective, and I'm all good with that. But I do love having the dry brush with the mountains, and you can darken it as much as you want, as little as you want. I would caution that as you continue to darken it, you might want to let it dry between the layers, because I have found that if I don't, that I have been known to overwork the paint, which is not always a bad thing in my opinion. But I think with a dry brush, it can look a little overworked, and you may not be after that that look. But you know, try it and see, because you might actually like it. I don't know. It's your painting, it's your art. So try everything is what I say. So you can see I've switched back to my favorite brush, which of course is the Velvet Touch Long Round. Doesn't matter what size, though this I believe is a size 4 or maybe a 2. And then of course my trees, I just do a back and forth left to right motion. And sometimes I'll just connect more branches to the branches that I've formed. Now the trees to the left are going to be smaller, emphasizing that it's further away given my path, and the trees on the right, or a bit more center, are going to be closer. And I just continue to add as many trees as I feel necessary. So I didn't show me painting every single tree here. If you want a better video on how I get a style like this, then go ahead and click this link up in the right hand corner, or go ahead and save the video and click the link in the description below. I should let you know that my paper is dry, so it's not wet anymore, but I do mist my paper quite frequently. So you can see that my paper is, for the most part, fairly flat. And I just love working like this, and I love being able to paint all the way to the left side of the page, to the right side of the page, and not have to worry about tape. But of course, if you want to tape your paper, then by all means. I find that for me, I go back to my paintings, I stop, I come back, and because I'm misting my paper so often, that I put a lot of water on my paper, and the tape tends to move upwards. Now for me, washi tape does not work. I have not found a good washi tape that works at all. So if I'm going to use tape, I use the classic painter's tape. So that's kind of what I will gravitate towards if I use tape, which sometimes I want tape, sometimes I love it. So really, it just doesn't matter. I did want to let you know that I did stipple in some more of that orange. I did add a lighter orange because I am known to get too carried away and have my scene become too dark. And I regret that, so I didn't want to do that this time. And I'm taking that detail brush, and while that orange was still wet, adding some details. And be sure to like and subscribe if you're finding value in my content. I'd love for you to stick around. And for everyone who's new here and everyone who has been here for a while, I am grateful that you are here, and thank you for all of the lovely comments and just feedback in general on my videos, and that you are liking them and finding value in what I'm showing you. So I am happy to be here, happy to share, and yeah. But that is it, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in my next one. Take care.